Hello and welcome to another edition of Charch Chat. I am Paul Charchian from LeagueSafe.com. Thanks for joining me here at Open Sports. Today I want to talk about LaDainian Tomlinson and the tricky conundrum that he presents to fantasy owners come draft time next year. Maybe you've got him in a keeper league or a dynasty league. You're thinking about trading for him because it might be a buy low moment for LaDainian Tomlinson. Let's talk about him and let's start with this season. It was a bad year. Worst year since his rookie year. He's been in the league 8 years. This was as bad as his rookie season before he was LaDainian Tomlinson. He had just 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. Now, by a lot of standards, 11 touchdowns is not that bad. But by LaDainian Tomlinson standards, when we're used to 18 to 31 touchdowns, 11 is a significant drop-off. And you paid primo dollar for LT. He was probably the first player taken in your draft. He was probably the most expensive player in your auction. But last year, so much trouble. And you watched him play, and he just didn't seem like the same guy, did he? I mean, he wasn't running the same way. He didn't have all the same the electrifying moves. He didn't have the straight-ahead speed. He always seemed a little hobbled. He had the turf toe injuries, ankle injuries, groin injuries, all these little things that kept popping up. Fortunately, none of them severe, and still working in his favor is the fact that he hasn't had a severe injury throughout his career. One of the things I found most troubling, though, last year was he had padded a lot of his stats on the back of the bad defenses in the AFC West, right? He had traditionally had these monster games against Kansas City and Oakland and Denver, and those didn't happen. Those were teams that he'd put up the $150 and 2 and 3 touchdowns against, and those games did not happen. And that really troubled me a little bit when you've got this long track record of just dominating game after game after game of these same teams, and then suddenly you can't beat them. Something has materially changed. Now, that to me was a real sign of concern. How much that was injury, play, bad play at the line, a difference in a coaching style, it's hard to know. But one thing you can tell that'll give you a lot of insight as to where the team really feels like LT is what they do with Darren Sproles. His backup, who frankly looked better than LT for most of this year. Darren Sproles is an unrestricted free agent, and if you see the Chargers back off of Darren Sproles and just let him go in the market like they did Michael Turner, that tells you that they believe that last year was an aberration and that LT will be back to running like he normally does as early as next year. Now, if they get into the bidding and they really make an effort to keep him, and whether or not they do or don't, even if they make a strong effort to keep him, and maybe they lose out to somebody else, that would concern me. If they keep him, or if they try to keep him, then it tells me they may not really feel like they can trust LaDainian Tomlinson. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily to be bad next year, but it would mean that there's some concern internally in the organization. One of the other things I think that's worth mentioning is this team seemed to really change last year into a Phillip Rivers pass-first team instead of an offense that was predicated around LaDainian Tomlinson, what he brings. We saw career highs for attempts and completions for Phillip Rivers. We saw career lows for carries and pass receptions for LT. That's not a coincidence that those two things are working opposite each other. As you look forward to this year, and by the way, LT is my number 9 running back ranked for next season. I think the approach is this. If you want to take him, great. But see what happens early, and I think he can be effective early. Then as the season grinds on, I worry that a guy with as much mileage as he has got, with the injuries that seem to be getting more frequent and more severe with time, as that happens, I think as the season grinds on, you need to get out of LaDainian Tomlinson at some point. If you're going to draft him, if you're going to keep him in your keeper league or your dynasty league, plan on playing him through September into October, and when he has a big game in October, I think you move him. And the end is coming. He's in his 9th year. The end's coming. It's just a matter of when. I think you can roll the dice on him early, play him while he's fresh, and then plan to get out of LaDainian Tomlinson some point in October, maybe early November. Just wait to strike when the iron's hot, after he has a couple of good games in a row. All right, there you go. My thoughts on LaDainian Tomlinson. Thanks for joining me here at Charch Chat. You can check out more of my videos right here on the site. If you have any questions for our fantasy staff, You can send us an email at fantasy@opensports.com if you want to see all of my top 10 running back rankings. They're already archived here on the site. You can find those as well.
Think you can complete the drive? Play today and get an automatic entry to win daily prizes, 2 tickets to the big game, and a brand new car. Start your drive today at opensports.com.